Hey everyone, welcome back to Sheepers Podcast. I'm your host, Brooke Wright, and today's guest is Mark. Hi, Mark.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you so much for being a guest today.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm really looking forward to this.
So, can you tell us what the significance is of the title Cupboard Love?
Oh, sure, yeah. Cupboard love. Yeah. It sort of has two connections or two things that why it's important for the book. One is that it's an old phrase, like an old idiom, and it refers to love that maybe a kid will show his or her parent when they want a cookie. They'll go, "Oh, mom, you're so great. I love you, mom." Really, what they're after is just a cookie. Dogs, of course, do it as well. They'll come over when we're having supper and they'll put their head on our lap and things like that. So that's called cupboard love. Love for the sake of getting some food, in other words. But it's also important to me because the word cupboard was the first word. Well, let me back up a bit. The book Cupboard Love, it's an etymological dictionary. And etymology has to do with word origins, word histories. And the word cupboard was the first word that I thought about in that way. And I was probably about, I don't know, 8 or 9 or so. And I remember coming home from school, the bus dropped me off, opening up the cupboard and looking in to see what was inside in our kitchen. And all of a sudden I went, cupboard. That's a board for cups, a cup board. And it just kind of it blew me away, because on the one hand, how many times had I said that word before and it had never occurred to me? Um, and also just the fact that we don't pronounce it like cupboard anymore. It's so many words, not just food words, but all food words, all words. We forget about where they came from for the most part. Like even my name, for example, it comes from the god of war, Mars. Your name, Brooke. When people refer to you, they're probably not thinking of a river or a stream. That probably doesn't come into their mind. So it's funny how language works and sometimes doesn't work for us humans.
Yeah, definitely. So, why do you think Martin chose to focus on? I mean, why do I think that you chose to focus on your food related words specifically? Like, why did you focus on that specifically?
Yeah, yeah. Um, the reason I chose food words is a couple things. One is that, well, English as a language as a whole has a very, very rich vocabulary because so many other languages have contributed to it. Either for good reasons or bad reasons. Like the Normans conquered England. The Normans they were from, well, actually the Normans were actually originally from Scandinavia. They were the Northmen, but
Yeah.
they went to France. They learned how to speak French, of course, and then they conquered England in 1066. And so the English language all of a sudden got this huge infusion of French words with colonialism, things like that. The English language and the people who spoke it went around the world, to Africa, the Caribbean, everywhere. Getting things, taking things back, bringing things there, and that included language. Also, when they came to North America, of course, a lot of our words like succotash, potato, tomato, those are all words that are indigenous to North America, or in the case of tomato and potato, Central America. Um, so there were just so many sources of words, of food words. They come from so many different places. Like, I don't know, I've never actually done this, but I would estimate that there's probably um, at least one food word from 80% of all the languages in the world has entered English. That's just off the top of my head. Um, the other reason why I chose it though is I knew that there's two things that people like. Almost everybody likes. One is food, and the other is language. People often they like thinking about language, or they like learning things about language, and so putting those things together, it's sort of like that. What's that candy bar that's It's the old commercial about the chocolate and the peanut butter come crashing together. Reese's Pieces, I
Oh,
think. You know,
Reese's. Yeah,
it's
Reese's
kind of
Pieces.
like that. It's two wonderful things coming together and hopefully making an even better thing.
Yeah, definitely. So this is a question outside the questions. I was thinking about it as you were speaking. So I haven't exactly read your book yet,
Hmm.
but it does look good. So is it a, I wouldn't say a cookbook, but is it like a book that has like a lot of different foods in there that you could cook? Like is it recipes in there as well?
No,
Or
there's no recipes. Sometimes I refer to recipes if they're relevant to a particular origin of a food word. It's organized like a dictionary. In other words, alphabetical. The very first word I think is am, which is AAM, which is an old word for a kind of barrel, a barrel that like lard was kept in.
oh,
And what's the last word? I think the last word is zabaglione, which is I think that's a pot. I forget what language it's from now, but I think it's a pot for cooking a particular kind of food. So between those two words, there's about 1,000 entries um, of different food words that exist in English or that have existed in English. Like one of the things that I also find interesting are words that are no longer current, that we no longer use, but we used to. So I'll give you an example. Like a word like blobsterdis, for example. Blobsterdis, uh, it appears in the 16th century, like it appears in some manuscripts and some books, but nobody knows what it referred to. I mean, we know that it referred to a food, but we don't know what it contained or its recipe or things like that. Another word would be caudle, Caudle, which referred to a kind of drink that was made of eggs and milk or cream and usually rum or whiskey, spices, things like that. And kind of like eggnog, but their word back then was caudle. So you would have a caudle. If you weren't feeling well, you would have a caudle, and it would supposedly would help you feel better. Um, yeah, so it's literally a dictionary in insofar as it's alphabetical, and yeah, it's got about 1,000 food words in it from, like I was saying, hundreds of different languages.
oh wow. So what is your book like? What is the audience for your book intended for?
Yeah, well, that's interesting because I've written a few other books as well, and each time what I did is I chose somebody that I knew, and I kind of wrote the book for them, even if I didn't tell them that I was writing the book for them. I just had them in mind as sort of the ideal audience because that way it helped me keep the tone and the scope kind of consistent as I was writing it over months. So in this case, I had a friend named Esme, and I don't think I ever told her that I had her in mind as I was writing this book. Um, and Esme, like the ideal reader of this book, is intelligent, curious about things, likes language, well read. So all of those qualities, so it's not a scholarly book. It's not like a book that academics or professors would read. But on the other hand, it's not a goofy book either. I'm aiming it for an intelligent audience that wants to learn more about something and wants to laugh along the way because there's a lot of humor in the book as well, I think.
Oh, okay. So what is the most surprising or humorous word origin you encountered?
Oh, there's a lot of them. Can I give you a couple examples?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, one of them that I was very surprised about when I first learned of it, it's the origin of the word avocado, which
Yeah.
comes from a language called Nahuatl in Central America and the northern part of South America. And in that language, the word avocado means testicle, because they thought, I guess, that there was a resemblance in the shape or something like that. Um, and of course, that means that what what's squished up avocados? What does that become? Uh,
Guacamole.
Guacamole, yeah. So guacamole, I guess, in that sense, is literally, squished testicles. So that was a good. Another one too that I really liked is this one, Funestrata. Now, Funestrata, it sounds like it would be a food word, but it doesn't exist. I mean, the word exists,
Wow.
but the food doesn't exist. And it was invented by the US military, I think in the 1960s, because, the military was always giving surveys to the soldiers, wanting to know, did they like this? Did they not like this? So they would give them surveys, asking them what kinds of foods did they like. And often when you do surveys like that, you add questions. I forget what they're called. Sort of like truth questions. So it helps you it helps you tell whether the person answering the survey is actually paying attention to the survey or just
Mhm.
answering it kind of randomly, saying A,
Mhm.
B, 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 C, things like that. So they
Yeah.
invented the word funestrata and they said, which do you prefer, funestrata, baked beans, or buttered ermel, which was another word they had made up. So they knew that any soldier who said they liked funestrata best, they were just choosing randomly.
That's funny.
That's good.
I always thought like the word souffle was, I don't
Yeah,
know, like
yeah,
that. I pronounced that wrong, or pomegranate. I
yeah,
always
yeah,
pronounced that wrong too. I don't know why.
yeah. Those are both great words. Those are both really great examples because souffle, which of course refers to a kind of cake or pastry, and you put it in the oven, it gets hot and it kind of puffs up, right? It becomes uh, almost like a hat. And it's actually related to the word flatulence.
Yep.
They both come from an ancient Latin source, which was flare, the verb flare, that means to puff. And so, with both of them, you can see how puffing is connected to both of those. Now, it might sound like souffle and flatulence don't sound much alike, but it's kind of like, if you think about, let's say maybe you and one of your cousins, you might say, well, how much do I actually look like my cousin? Sometimes, there might be some cousins that you look a lot alike, and there might be some cousins that you don't look alike at all, because
Mhm.
things change over time.
Yeah.
So with the word souffle, the first thing that happened was the prefix sub was added to it, because it literally means to puff from underneath. So subflare became souffle. And in the same way, I won't go into the details, but flatulence also came from that same source. And you also, what was the other word that you mentioned? Oh yeah, pomegranate. That's a really
Yeah.
great word too, because, well, a lot of people will probably know, the word, the pom part of it is French
Yeah.
for the word apple or fruit more generally. Like in French, the word for potato is pomme de terre, meaning apple of the earth. And apples, of course, are just poms. And pomegranate, the granate part of it, actually means like grains or little seeds,
Mhm.
and it's related to the word grenade. And you might say, well, what in the world is the connection between a pomegranate and a grenade? Well, if you've ever cut a pomegranate open, you know that it's full of these tiny, well, not tiny, but it's full of little seeds, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you think, oh, is it really worth all this energy trying to eat a pomegranate? And they're messy, but it's full of all these little seeds. And a grenade, of course, is full of little bits of metal and stuff, the shrapnel that comes flying out when it explodes.
Yeah.
So, yeah, somebody thought that the two things were similar in that way. Um, Gravy actually is related to them as well. It's a more distant cousin, because gravy was originally a thickened sauce that was seasoned with a lot of grains of salt and pepper. So all those words are related to each other.
Oh wow. I'm
And
learning a
grenadine.
lot
Yeah,
about food.
yeah, you're getting hungry.
Yeah. So, how many languages contribute to the English culinary based on the book?
Oh, like I was saying, I would bet like 80% of all languages in the world. I mean, I might be wrong, because there's so many languages that are very small. Only a few people still speak some of them, sadly. Um, but I know that there are words from Africa, South America, Central America, and like North America, indigenous languages, the far north in Canada, probably every country in Europe, every part of Asia, I think, certainly China and Japan and Korea. Trying to think if there's a word from Laos. I can't think of one. There's some from Thailand. Um, so yeah, almost any country, any nation that the people who spoke English came in contact with over the past 1500 years, they have given us food words, or we've borrowed or stolen food words from them. Yeah, so
Mhm.
many, 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 many languages.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
So, wow. So, how does the book use humor to enhance the learning experience?
How does it? Oh, okay. Yeah, because I consider myself both a writer and an educator. Like I used to teach in a university. I love teaching. Um, and so when I started writing Covered Love, what I wanted to do was write something that would both entertain and educate, because to me that's the ideal thing. Um, it I mean, anything can be interesting if it's approached from the right direction, I think, or in the right way. But it's also great to be able to write something that is humorous, so that people will laugh, literally laugh out loud as they are reading. So I wanted to do that. I never thought of this until just now, but I think this is a good analogy. Do you remember Bill Nye the Science Guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think the book is kind of like his show, I think, because you learn a
Oh,
lot, from that show, but he's joking around and there's all kinds of funny stuff going on at the same time. So, yeah, it's that kind of book. I think it's a book that Bill Nye would like.
ooh, okay, okay. Because I love Bell Nye the Science Guy.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, okay. So, what does the book address metaphor in food terms like honeyed words?
Well, yeah, that's a you mentioned honeyed words, and I'll give you the example of the word honeymoon. When people get married, right after they go on a honeymoon,
Mhm,
and it literally meant well, the moon part. That's where we get our word month, right? A month is a moon cycle long, and honey in the sense that it was a sweet month, and then it was I guess people thought that you get 1 month of sweetness between the two people who've just got married, and then things might start to get a little sour.
yeah,
So
yeah.
so that's one of them. I'll give you another example too, sticking with the honey theme. So in Latin, the Latin word for honey is melus, MELLUS, and the word try this again. The word mellifluous literally means flowing like honey. It's like when somebody speaks so well and so sweetly, they're speaking as if honey is flowing out of their mouth. So that's a
Oh,
place where a food is kind of embedded in one of our words, um, as a kind of metaphor, I guess. Yeah.
okay, okay. I like that. I like that. So, how does Cupboard Love demonstrate the evolution of language?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, the English language, as I was mentioning before, has a really, really interesting history. I mean, I'm biased, it's my first language. Um, but so much happened to England as a nation. First, the original language was called Anglo-Saxon, which was a very Germanic language. We can't, like you and I, can't understand Anglo-Saxon now, but certain German speakers, like German speakers from a part of Europe called Friesland, they can actually read Anglo-Saxon fairly easily, or at least with some, well, maybe not easily, but they can read it. But then, as I was mentioning, a bunch of things happened. So first, the Romans came and they conquered most of England. They brought in a lot of Latin words, words that had to do with the church, things like that. And then I think the next thing was what I mentioned before. Oh no, was going to say the Norman Conquest, no, but before that, all the Vikings came down from Scandinavia and
Yeah.
again conquered the northern parts of England and Scotland, and so a lot of words from languages that are now Norwegian and Swedish, they came into our language, including some food words like smorgasbord, for example. Smorgasbord is a Swedish word, and it literally means the smor means like butter, the gas means goose, and the board means table. So a smorgasbord is literally a butter goose table. So it's a table where a feast is set. Maybe I should ask: is the word smorgas, like you mentioned you were in Kentucky? Is the word smorgasbord known in the U.S. or?
I don't know. I've never
Oh,
heard of it.
maybe not.
Like I know s'mores. I know what s'mores is,
No,
but I've never heard that word.
that's different. They come from I want some more, of course. But yeah, as I was explaining that, it occurred to me that smorgasbord maybe that's a uniquely Canadian word. Smorgasbord is basically a buffet, that kind of thing. But
Oh,
it's a Swedish in origin. So, and then there was the French conquest, the Norman conquest, as I mentioned, a whole bunch of French words came in. And then in the 15th, 16th, 17th century, a whole bunch of Latin and Greek words came in because of the Renaissance. And then as, England spread out, that's when all the words from Africa and Asia and North America and so on all came in. So in a way, the history of food words in the English language, I think, reflects, or it's like a mini version of what happened to the English language overall. Because as this was happening, we didn't just take food words, of course, we took place words, animal words, things like that.
oh, okay, okay. That's
Like,
neat how all the words came from different countries and stuff
yeah,
and different
yeah. Like,
man.
oh, you're in Kentucky, and
Yeah,
so pecans are that nut, is that fairly common down there? Or
yeah. What
maybe
did you call it? What did you call it?
this is this is another Canadian American thing. Maybe I pronounce it okay. The word Pecan. I usually pronounce it pecan.
Yeah.
Maybe down there it's pronounced pecan.
No, it's pecan. You're right.
Oh, it is pecan. Okay,
Yes.
so yeah, some in some parts of the U.S. it's pronounced pecan. I forget where, but
Wow.
that word pecan comes from an indigenous language, and I think it means that which is hard, because I think it has a very hard shell. We don't have pecans up here, but I
Oh,
love to buy them.
y'all don't
Yeah,
have them up there?
nope. We have walnuts and chestnuts, but yeah, pecans are my favorite nut, and we don't have them here.
Oh,
Oh, and
wow.
I also love Brazil nuts, which obviously aren't up here. They're from Brazil. Yeah, so I envy a lot of the fruits and things, because we can't really grow watermelon up here or things like that.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
yeah.
So y'all don't have watermelon either? I just had watermelon like two
Well, I
seconds
bought a
ago.
watermelon yesterday. I ate the whole thing between then and now. Um, so yeah, we can of course get those things in, but yeah, a lot of those fruits we can't grow here. We can't really grow oranges here or lemons, apples, apricots, plums we can grow here. Um, yeah, so we have to rely on importing a lot of these things.
Oh, okay. Okay. So how does the Czech title, I'm not going to pronounce that right. It's
Oh
called
yeah,
Stuffed Irish. But I don't know
yeah,
how to pronounce it. But
yeah,
you know what
yeah.
I'm talking about.
Yeah, Cupboard Love, and this totally astonished me. So Cupboard Love came out in 1996, the first version. So this is the third edition that just came out. And then a couple years after the first edition came out, my publisher was contacted by a publisher in Prague, in the Czech Republic, who wanted to buy the rights to it and translate it into Czech. And I thought, how do you translate an etymological dictionary? I don't read any Czech. I don't know any Czech at all. Well, except for the cupboard, the name in Cupboard Love, they translate it as Nadavani Pistros, I
Yeah.
think is how it's pronounced. I have a cousin who is married to somebody from the Czech Republic, and it means stuffed ostrich. Now, when I learned that, I thought, why is it called stuffed ostrich? And I guess the idea is that stuffed ostrich refers to a kind of food or a meal, but it's not really. It's like an imaginary food. It's like oh, I don't know what did the gods of ancient Greece, ambrosia, they had, and nectar and things like that, or funestrata. I was mentioning that beforehand. So yeah, the Czech title, meaning stuffed ostrich, uh, is a term that exists in Czech, as I understand it, and it refers to kind of a fanciful food. Um, Another example of this isn't as common anymore. My grandmother would have known this word, but there's a food called Welsh rarebit, and you might think, oh, that sounds pretty fancy. It's a rare bit, right? Well, it's not. Welsh rarebit is just toast with cheese, and they called it that in kind of a sarcastic way, as if to a Welsh person, because the English for a long, long time they made fun of people from Wales, from the Welsh, and it was like saying, "Oh, the Welsh, a piece of cheese on bread, that's really fancy for them," and that came to be known as the Welsh rarebit.
Oh, okay. This is neat. I like this. I'm gonna read your book.
Yeah, well, and the
Wow.
other thing about the book though is you don't need to sit down with start with the A's and just read through. I'd say just keep it around your house, and when you are making something and you go, "Oh, where does the word um walnut come from?" Something like that. Then you can just look it up, and that's the best way, just kind of reading it in bits and pieces here and there.
Wow. So how does English different from other language in this culinary terminology?
Well, I would say that it's got, as I was saying, more food words from other languages than I would say any language. Like I think if you looked at, let's say, French or Polish or Greek, um, of course they have thousands of different food words, but I don't think that they would have nearly as many that are coming from other languages. Um, so English is kind of unique that way. Um, there are other examples, like in French, um, their word for steak is biftec, which they took it from English, beef steak. They adopted the word beefsteak, and pronunciation changes. It became biftec. So that's an example of an English word that entered another language. And of course, all kinds of product names entered where they arose in North America, often or usually, and then were adopted in other languages. The most obvious example would be things like Coca-Cola, um, stuff like that. Brand names, Yeah.
Okay, okay, nice. So your book was nominated for the Julia Child Cookbook Award. How did you feel
Yeah.
about that?
Oh well, both wonderful and awful, because wonderful because it was a great honor. I was one of only three nominees in that category. Um, so that was wonderful. And I had the chance. I could have gone to Chicago, to where the awards ceremony was happening. I could have met Julia Child, because this was in 1997, and I didn't. I can't remember why I didn't. Maybe I was teaching at the time or something like that, and I kicked myself. I should have done that. I should have found a way of going there and doing that. It's a big regret in my life not doing that. But yeah, it was quite an honor to even know
Oh
that
wow.
she knew about the book. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you know why it was nominated for it, or did they tell you or
Well, I
anything?
think I think just because it's so excellent.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, it
um,
sounds pretty
I
excellent.
I think because it was kind of unusual, and I mean there have been other books both before Cupboard Love and after that. look at the origins of food words, but I would say none of them were as thorough as mine. Um, and I think none of them tried to bring as much humor into their books as mine. Um,
Okay.
just incidentally too, like Cupboard Love was successful enough that my publisher, after it was published, came back to me and said, "Okay, we want you to write another book about word origins. What would be a good topic?" And for a while, I thought, well, maybe sports words. I don't know, names of flowers, things like that. And then it hit me. It should be words about love and sex. And so I wrote a book called The Lover's Tongue, which is all about the origins and histories of words having to do with love and sex. So it's kind of like Covered Love, but a different topic.
Oh, okay. I like that. So let me ask you a question. It's outside the questions. It just came up.
Sure.
So have there been different, like since the 90s, has there been like different foods that been created and stuff like
Yeah.
throughout the times?
Definitely. Like I actually looked this up just before I joined you because I was thinking, is sushi? I couldn't remember, because it's 30 years ago
Oh,
that I wrote it.
I love
Is
sushi.
sushi in it? Oh, it's one of my favorites. It's healthy too. Sushi is in it. But there's some other words from Japan, like I think umami, which is a word that refers to a certain kind of flavor. Like, we often talk about sweet, salt, tart, and what's the other one? But anyways, umami is supposed to be like this fifth flavor, and it's not in the book. And if I were to expand it, like write a fourth edition and add more words, I would want to include umami. And I think I've got a list somewhere of some other words that have become more common.
Yeah.
Um, like maybe poutine. Like poutine is a Canadian word, um, and I think it was probably mostly known only in Quebec back in 1996 or so, but certainly it's become very, very popular in Canada. And I assume, do you know what poutine is? Can you get poutine down there?
I, I've never heard of it.
You've
Like,
never heard
what
of it?
is it?
Okay.
What is it?
Poutine is it's French fries, and they
Oh,
cover them in mayonnaise and cheese curds. That's sort of the base, and then you can put other kinds of spices and seasonings on it, like all different kinds. Like there's even the other day I was at a restaurant and they were offering a buttered chicken version of poutine. Um,
I've never heard
and
of it.
oh well, you should see if you can find it. It's it's a very heavy food. Like you don't want to eat too much of it, but it's very satisfying. It's one of those foods that sometimes you just really, really crave it. So yeah, it's Poutine, poutine. Yeah. And
Okay.
have you heard have you ever like Hawaiian pizza? Pizza with pineapple on it?
Pineapple. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's my favorite
That,
kind.
mine too. That was apparently invented in Canada, not far from here,
Uh-huh.
a city named Mississauga. And apparently, a lot of people, like here in Canada, everybody loves Hawaiian pizza. But apparently, in maybe some parts of the US, it's like, oh, who would put pineapple on their pizza? That's awful. That's
Yeah, some people
disgusting.
hate it.
Yeah. But it's our gift to the United States then, pineapple pizza.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. That's one of my favorites.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Ham and
think I may
pineapple.
get a pizza.
Yeah. Yeah.
So have you heard any positive feedback about your book or anything? Have you gotten any
Yeah.
positive feedback?
Yeah. When it came out, well, this is the thing about I've also written fiction. Like I've written a couple of novels. And the thing about nonfiction, like Covered Love and the other book I was mentioning about origins of words about love and sex, it's much easier to get media attention because, like in a sentence, you can say, "This is what this book is about." With a novel, it's much more difficult to do that. And so when Cupboard Love came out, it got a lot of media attention. Like all of the major newspapers in Canada, I think most of them in the UK. Um, oh, the Atlantic, which is a big magazine in the US, of course. It got a good review there. Um, and oh yeah, yeah, I just remember this. So you're in Kentucky. I've mentioned that a few times. There's another author there. Her name is Martha Barnett, and she lives, or at least when I knew was in contact with her, she was in Lexington, I believe, and she also had written a book about the origins of food words. Hers was called Lady Fingers and Nuns Tummies. Both of those things are kinds of pastries. Have you had lady fingers? Like they're long shortbread. They look like fingers.
I think I have.
Yeah,
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 I think I
yeah.
have.
I can't recall what nuns' tummies are exactly. But anyways, yeah, in your state is Martha Barnett, who also is a real expert in the origins of food words.
Man, this is neat, and I love food, so this is definitely is like a top book for me.
Yep, yep, yep,
So my last and
yep.
final question before I
Sure.
let you go is,
Yeah.
where can my listeners find your book?
Oh, yeah. Just go to. I mean, if you want to go to one of the big online bookstores, it's in Amazon. Here in Canada, there's Indigo. Barnes and Noble is still down in the U.S., I think, isn't it? Um, and or if you want, if you want to support your local neighborhood bookseller, go to them and they'll be able to order it and they'll have it within a week or so. So it's easy to get. You can also this third edition you can also get as an ebook. So if somebody wants to go to Amazon and download the ebook, they can have it within seconds. So that's kind of neat.
Yeah, it is. It's
Yeah.
very neat. I love talking about food. I'm hungry now. But I want to thank you so much, Mark, for coming on my podcast and telling me about your book.
Of course. This was really fun. Thank you, Brooke.
You have a great day.
Okay, you too. Bye bye.
Hey everyone, I want to thank you all so much for listening to my interview with Mark. Definitely check out his book if you love food. I know I love food, and I know a lot of people love food too, so check it out. Bye.